I'm Miles Brown, a leadership development and communication specialist. I'm also a minister of the gospel. Every day I help people share their stories, but pastors, they don't always get to tell their full journey, how they became who they are today. In this show, we dive into the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups, and the downs of becoming and being a pastor. This is how pastors are made, sharing the real stories of real pastors. This is Highland Terrace Baptist Church. In the heart of Greenville, Texas, this church is celebrating 119 years of service, and this is 50 years at this specific location. This is a church where you can experience the gospel, worship, community, baptisms, and today we get to speak with the young man currently tasked with leading this congregation forward, Pastor Tommy Mann. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super excited today. This is how pastors are made, where we go through the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs of becoming and being a pastor. I'm the host, Miles Brown, and today I am with an amazing preacher. I don't know if he wants me to say those words, so I'm going to say it anyways. He's a good preacher. I've been enjoying him. This is Pastor Tommy Mann here at Highland Terrace Baptist Church, and we're going to get into some of his story and how he became the pastor of this church here. But before we do that, I got to let you know something. I need you guys to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think of the episode. And also, this book is out. This is Forged in the Fire, The True Making of a Leader. This book is near and dear to me, not just because I'm the author, but also because I never thought I could be an author, and also because of what is inside this book. If you are thinking of being a leader in the church, at work, anywhere, this is a book you need to read, because leadership is not everything that people think it is. And there's also a lot of things that you'll have to deal with to become the leader that you want. So I want you to know that if you're going through things as a leader, the fire is not meant to burn you. It's meant to forge you into the leader you're supposed to be. So be sure to pick up your copy. You can leave a comment, or you can go to milesbrownonline.com/forgedinfire and get your copy of this book. With that being said, let's hop into today's episode. I'm super excited to be with you, sir. We've been chatting about a few things. I found out you're a sports fan, basketball fan. So am I. Being from Southern California, I am almost forced to be a Laker fan.
Well, yeah, it's automatic.
Yeah, I don't really have much of a choice there, but I'm also happy with being a Laker fan. We've had some really good times.
Sure, yeah.
But I wanna have a moment where, before we get into you as a pastor, let's start as I do with every other preacher I speak to. Where are you from? What was childhood like? We'll start there with the origin story, and then we'll dig into some other things as we move forward.
Yeah, born and raised in Orlando, Florida. So
All right.
My disdain for the Lakers began when Shaq left Orlando for L.A., and then history repeated itself when Dwight Howard left Orlando for L.A. So
I want you to know that I do feel sorry for you. And
it's fun watching him win all those championships.
Yeah,
with another
I hope you
franchise,
don't. I hope you don't take that out on me. I intend to be a brother in Christ.
Okay,
and what
that's
Shaq
fair.
did
That's fair.
has nothing to do with me.
No, actually, I'm a big Shaq fan still. I forgave him several years ago, and I've been healthier ever since I let go of
Well,
it.
amen.
Yeah. But from Orlando, I was born there, grew up there. Multiple generations on my dad's side from Orlando. So my mom is from Alabama, but my dad was in the Air Force, and he was stationed. They sent him to Alabama, and that's where he met my mother. She was working on the base at the PX there, and they met, got married, and when my father got out of the Air Force, went back to Florida, and I was born very shortly thereafter. So my older brother was actually born in Alabama. So got to Florida just in time to be a native Floridian. So I loved it, man. I loved growing up in Florida, big Gator fan. You know, we had season tickets. We did football games, and we went to
I'm jealous.
all of it. Yeah, man, I loved that atmosphere, and all my family's still there. And that's the hard part is not being as close to them geographically, as I would like to be. But that's part of it. But I grew up. I don't know if you've ever heard of the World Baptist Fellowship. Probably not. And that is that's what most people say. It's a small network of churches. They're independent Baptist churches. And I'm now in the Southern Baptist Convention, so that's much more well known. It's well organized, well funded. A lot of churches in it. Really, it's a global denomination.
Yeah.
But the World Baptist Fellowship is a small network of independent Baptist churches that work together, cooperate together, and really for the sake of missions. So it's all kind of headquartered around one school in Arlington, Texas. It's Arlington Baptist University. So that's the school that if you're in the World Baptist Fellowship and you feel called to ministry,
Really?
yeah. That's where they say to go. So my youth pastor's from Mansfield, Texas.
Okay.
And he was at the church in Orlando because when you graduate from that school, there's only so many churches in this fellowship, where you can apply elsewhere and all that. But
Yeah.
so he ended up graduating from there and then making his way to Orlando, and he was my youth pastor. So when I felt the Lord calling me to the ministry, he said, "This is where you need to go," and took him at his word. And others I knew that had gone out there. Several others from our youth group were at the school as well. So to me, it was a no-brainer. I left Orlando. It's about 1,300 miles from there to here, and met my wife on the second day that I was on
Really?
campus there. Yeah. Yeah. Sitting downstairs in the lobby. My friend who's became my roommate later, but I kind of knew him from elsewhere, but he was like, "Hey man, come over here and hang out with us." And he was sitting there talking to his girlfriend, and I was just sitting there like a third wheel, just kind of staring off into space, and then this girl walks in, literally trips over my foot, and she turns around, "Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry." And it was like a Hallmark movie after that, just that's how we met. And we've been together ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married?
20 years, just in
Okay.
January, just celebrated 20 years.
Okay. Well, congratulations to you two. What's her name?
Alicia.
Alicia and Tommy. Congratulations, 20 years of marriage. I don't want to dig too much into that story, but I might come back later
Sure.
and ask for that because I think marriage is one of the most important institutions that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's something we need to, as believers, dig into more often so people can understand it, be encouraged in it,
Yeah.
be educated, and all that kind of good stuff. But so no pastor comes out the womb a pastor, right? And I understand you went to school pretty much for ministry, if I'm
Right.
understanding
That's right.
correctly. And what I read online is that you got saved at like 13.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That sounds right.
Do you know, or do you mind letting us know what was the thing that made you finally accept Jesus? Like what pushed you to make that decision?
Yeah, I was in church. Like a lot of people, their testimony is I was in the church nursery, or 9 months before I was born, I was in church. But that's not my story. But not too much later than that. I was in second grade, really, when our family got into church. So
Okay.
so still a fairly young age, impressionable years, and I'm grateful for that. And I remember at around that time getting baptized. In fact, we were they called it a children's church there. And so we're in there in the children's church room, and somebody came in and said, that our family was joining the church, and so they took us out so we could go down with our parents and
You
join
mind
the
bringing
church.
the mic just a little
Yeah,
closer?
yeah, sure. Is that
Oh,
good?
Yes, sir.
All right,
We're
cool.
good.
So shortly after that, I think they asked if I had been baptized and said no, and for whatever reason, I don't remember any conversations about what baptism was. I just remember the next thing is I was getting wet. So I thought that I was saved. And in fact, somebody had asked me if I had asked Jesus into my heart, and I said no. And they said, "Well, just close your eyes and repeat these words." I had no idea what I had said, why that was done, but everybody was happy and glad that I did it. And so I thought I was saved. And that's what we tell kids, will you ask Jesus into your heart, you're going to heaven. And to me, that was all that there was to it. So I was in 8th grade, and our church hosted this weekend where other churches, youth groups came together. We had different speakers and musicians. It was a Friday night and a Saturday thing. And it was during that Friday night, I'll never forget it. It was just, the Lord was speaking to my heart. I didn't hear audible words, but I knew God was speaking to me to say, and you've not made this decision.
Yeah.
Other people are telling you this, but you have never called on my name. And so I remember the preacher. In fact, I know him personally still to this day, the guy that was talking. He was not at the invitation. It wasn't like a stand up and come down the altar. He was like right in the middle of the message. And I just closed my eyes and started talking to God. And I said, will you save me? And I felt like in that moment, for the first time, I had made that decision where I trusted in Jesus. I recognized my sin and I asked the Lord to save me. And I felt like he did right then. And that has stuck with me.
Yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. I've met a lot of people who kind of have the same. When I was a kid, they made me say it, and I said it, and it's like, do you know what you do? You know what it means?
Yeah.
Like if you don't know what you did you really do it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's awesome that eventually you came around, still at a young age.
Yes. Yeah.
And said, you know what, I do understand this, and I really want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. But The college that you went to, what's the name of the college?
Arlington Baptist.
Arlington Baptist. Okay. You go to Arlington Baptist. What's your experience in college like? Like, what is college life like at Arlington Baptist?
It's small. It's a small school. There are 2 dorms. There's a boys' dorm and a girls' dorm. So it's not a huge place where you can get lost. Just a handful of buildings on campus, but nice. I mean, it's a beautiful campus. It's up on a hill. Actually, there's a lot of history behind it from the days of Bonnie and Clyde during Prohibition.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde have a
at
connection.
Arlington Baptist.
Yes, they're not alumni.
Oh, okay.
But it's a little different than that. But in the days, it was illegal to gamble, betting on horse races. Alcohol itself was prohibited. But during those days, they had this whole underground network where the whole area is gated in, and there was this guard tower. So everybody had to be let in. And if police would ever come, they could radio into people that there's this whole casino. Walls would flip around, roulette tables would disappear, underground tunnels that camp in a tea garden. So by the time the cops would get from the gate up to where they were, they're just sitting outside sipping tea. I mean, gangsters and, Bonnie and Clyde, it's just an amazing story. But there was a man named J. Frank Norris, a controversial firebrand preacher in the 1920s, that he was preaching against the sin of alcohol and gambling and those type of things. And he said that area was called the Top of the Hill Terrace. And he said, God is going to give us that hill. And several years later, he rode with the police out there to raid that hill. They arrested all those people. And J. Frank Norris bought the campus, bought that whole area and turned it into a seminary. So that's where we went to school. So an amazing place, really.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
Not a story I thought I was going to get, but one I'm certainly glad to have.
Yeah, it's a historical landmark. I mean, you go up there, you can take the tour today. You can go call the office and schedule a tour, and it's amazing all the work they've done. When I was there, they unearthed a new tunnel too. It was kind of a big thing. But yeah, I mean, they've got wheelbarrows that they used to move the cash around, and the horse stables. They turned the old horse stables into a classroom. I mean, it's some pretty cool stuff. What God has done. That's
pretty awesome.
Yeah,
so
yeah, it is.
When I know that you are a very well educated man, you have multiple degrees, right? What are all your degrees in?
All theology.
Ultimately. All theology.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you first went to school, was that what you went to school for?
Yes.
For theology. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. I told you that I had a moment where I had a professor, my principles of biblical interpretation class. I felt like he knew everything.
Yeah.
And I was an absolute idiot. Did you have a moment like that where you were like, "Oh, I don't know even what I am telling people that I know"?
Yeah, for sure. I think freshman level stuff, you come in and you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And you might, raised in church, and I was blessed with opportunities to preach or teach Sunday school and things like that throughout high school, because my church knew, where I was headed and giving me opportunities.
Yeah.
And so, I was a nerd. I did Bible memory competitions and things like that. So, I would memorize a chapter of the Bible, or we would be quizzed on. So, I felt like I had a firm grasp on the words of Scripture, but the hermeneutical part of it, that interpretation and how it all fits together, the systematic theology, it blew my mind. And I had a professor when I went to Southwestern that I told somebody, when I think his autopsy will reveal that his brain is just a Bible. I've never met somebody that he could just talk and talk and talk about it, and it is amazing. And I'm very grateful for higher education. I think it does a lot of good.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'm not a person, I don't technically believe that every preacher needs to go to college.
Sure, yeah.
But I definitely think that every preacher would definitely benefit from additional education.
And I think ongoing education too. It might not be right out of high school, finish this, get a position.
Yeah.
But I think you try to always keep your sword sharp, and anytime there's opportunities to take a class or, to further that education, I think it's very wise.
Yeah. And because when I remember I told you when I learned about apologetics.
Yeah.
And the reason I learned about apologetics is because I started having questions. I was in church, like I said, my whole life. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere in my high school years, I started to have a moment where I was like, but is it real? Mm-hmm. Like, I know what it says, but is it real? Yeah. Right? And then that's how I first learned about apologetics. And I was like, oh, there's answers for all these. There's answers for questions I never thought about having. Mm-hmm. My question to you is, Did you have any moments where you were questioning, where you were doubting, where you was like, I don't know if it's real?
Yeah, sure. And it's okay to have those questions because remember, John the Baptist doubted. I mean, he sent his disciples to ask Jesus, are you really the one that we should be waiting for? Or is there somebody else? I mean, he's John the Baptist and he had moments of doubt. So Jesus didn't get mad at John for doubting either. Remember what he said? He said, you go tell John that the blind see, that the sick have been healed.
Yeah.
So Jesus just pointed to the evidence. And so a lot of people say we shouldn't need any evidence. Well, when John the Baptist doubted, Jesus simply reminded him of what he had seen. Yeah, evidence, exactly. So I'm a big fan of apologetics, but I remember having at different times in my life having those same questions. Look, I was essentially raised in a Baptist church, or you could say a Christian church. What if I was raised in a Muslim country? Because I think that my church is right. Well, what if I was raised in a Hindu country? Because I'm a Florida Gator fan, Orlando Magic fan, because my father is both of those things. So I like Dale Earnhardt when I was a kid in NASCAR. He's probably before your time. But
I know about him and Junior.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but I like Dale Earnhardt because my dad liked Dale Earnhardt. Yeah. So I had this thought, okay, am I a Christian because my parents are Christians? Am I specifically a Baptist because my parents were Baptist? And I think we all have to go through those moments where we decide, is this my belief? Is this my conviction? Or is this just a hand-me-down theology? Yeah. And I think it's very normal to go through things like that if you've been raised in it, to wonder, is this the only reason I believe? But then when you find the evidence. I mean, Muhammad's never spoken to me. But so people say, well, there's errors in the Bible. We can debate those. I don't believe there are. But even if you can say this absolutely proves an error in the Bible, I talk to Jesus every day. He talks to me. That's what it's about. Like the evidence is he's alive. That a man who died on a cross 2,000 years ago speaks to me, and I have a relationship with him. I've got the evidence on my side. Aside from all the archaeological and apologetic evidence, he's alive, man. That's when you've experienced, when you taste and see that the Lord is good, there's no doubt in my mind.
That's a message that it'll make somebody happy. You know, if we were in a missionary Baptist church, somebody might start shouting on
that. Get the tambourine going.
But that's awesome. I like I told you earlier, I recently shared a message just saying we need to share that more, that Jesus is alive. Yeah. Like death can't hold him.
That's right.
And I think that's an amazing thing. But you said you had multiple times in your life. Were there specific incidences that brought it up, or was it just time and time again? You're just like, is it?
Different things. I mean, there's exposure to different belief systems. Some of that I came across in college. Some of it meeting people from different backgrounds, people that were that maybe held to a doctrine that I didn't necessarily hold to, and things like that would just make me wonder: have I been doing it wrong all these years? There's also the death of a loved one. You know, you always believe in heaven, and then somebody dies, and like, are they really there? You know, I think it's natural to. Is this all just wishful thinking, or do we really know that there is something on the other side of this? So I think different things in life can lead to those moments of not necessarily doubt, but just I want to work out my own salvation with fear and trembling. I want to know that I know that I know that this is true.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's beautiful about our faith is that we do have the right to work it out. Yeah, like you're free to not know and to wrestle and to grow. Yeah. I was speaking with someone recently, and they're not in their faith. They're not free to do that. There is no questioning. Yeah. This is right because we said it's right, and that's it. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, I'm glad I get to question, and I'm also glad that we have answers for the question. Yeah. But moving forward, you're at Arlington Baptist, which has a story that I would have never guessed. It makes me want to go up there and visit now.
Yeah, it's worth it. You'll enjoy it.
But did you always know you wanted to be a pastor, or did you just know you wanted to serve?
Well, not necessarily pastor. I like the way that you asked that, but from a young age, and right around the time of my salvation, I felt like the Lord was calling me into full-time Christian service. And that's what we use that phrase a lot back in those days. Full-time Christian service. I mean, vocationally, I'm meant to serve the Lord, because we all should serve the Lord in different capacities as we're going. But I knew and I surrendered to that. Another phrase we used to use a lot, where I told God, my life is yours, that even though I had career paths that I would have liked to have pursued. Said, I'm not going to do that. I believe that you're calling me into the ministry. And I was terrified that meant I was going to be a pastor. So I was like, I can handle youth pastor. Like you talked about music. Like I used to write song lyrics and things like maybe I can get into something like that. I did not want to go overseas as a missionary, and I did not want to stand in a pulpit every Sunday or, multiple times a week. Cause like, I'm going to run out of stuff to say, how does the pastor keep coming up with?
That's hilarious. Yeah. I understand that because I've thought that as well.
Yeah.
There's been people who told me like, you think you know why you started this podcast, but really you started it because you're going to be a pastor one day. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And for a few reasons, but one of the reasons is like, for me, the only thing I feel the need to preach is that Jesus came, he did all these amazing things. There's prophecies that he fulfilled, prophecies that he gave. He sacrificed his life and he came back. And one day we're going to meet him. Like that's all I've got to preach. As far as I'm concerned, I have taught on different things, but as far as I'm concerned,
sure. Yeah.
That's all I got to preach.
Yeah. Well, you be an evangelist, man. You can do that like 4 messages, 4 days, and go to the next city.
Absolutely.
They just the same things.
And that's kind of how I've always felt. But did you have any other hiccups that made you say, I'm willing to serve, but I don't want that position as pastor?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was in student ministry for several years, 9 years as a youth pastor and working with kids. And then I spent 2 years because I kind of felt like I was outgrowing that and just wasn't really able to connect with the students like I once was, and felt like the Lord was leading me away from that. But I still did not think that the Lord was calling me not only to preach regularly, because I was afraid of that. I was afraid that it's going to be Saturday night and I'm going to be sweating like I got nothing. What am I going to say tomorrow? So I always had that fear. But then also just the whole leadership, as you talk about, like really even in your book, but having that responsibility on your shoulders, man. There's staff. I mean, there's other people here that the church goes south. It's these guys' livelihood. There's a lot of responsibility. It's dealing with problems and deciding like, do we borrow money and build a building? And I mean, there's so many leadership kind of decisions that it terrified me. And I was very comfortable being the number 2 or, even further down the line. Like when I was the associate pastor, I loved coming alongside our senior pastor and, hey, how can I serve you? What can I take off your plate? And I love that. And so I didn't think the Lord was calling me. I hoped he wasn't calling me to be a pastor, but my pastor kept telling me that the Lord was like, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so it's really, I love politics. And sometimes I pretend that I don't, because sometimes I hate politics. Because I either get obsessed with it, or
I can definitely see that. Well, not just you, but just in general, being like, "Oh, this is fun," and being like, "I hate completely annoyed with you guys."
Right. Yeah. So I'll either go all in or I stop cold turkey. Like I'm not going to watch the news. I'm not going to care because I get fed up with it.
Yeah.
But so we were in South Carolina for 15 years, but we were at this point where I was the associate pastor at the church, feeling kind of frustrated though because I didn't really love what I was doing. It got to where it didn't feel meaningful because I was doing a lot of things that were, the Lord was changing my heart, but I wasn't recognizing it as that, and I felt frustrated. And so somebody told me that the guy that's in the state House of Representatives, he's going to retire. And somebody said, you ought to think about running for that seat. And it's like, that just kind of came out of nowhere. And so I went and I met with that guy. He's like, yeah, I'm probably going to retire. And so I said, well, if you retire, then I'll consider running for the seat. And then I left there and I just kept thinking, I'm supposed to run for this seat whether or not he retires. So I called him and he was at his office. So I wanted to go to him face to face. I said, I know I told you I wouldn't run against you. I said, but whether you run or retire is up to you. I said, but I'm in the race. I just knew that's what I was supposed to do. And so I launched a 14-month campaign to run for the House of Representatives and won the primary, lost in the general to that same guy who I had nothing but respect for and still do. But in so doing, I resigned from the church that I had served for 8 years because I said they didn't hire me to run for office. People were saying you could be part-time at the church. They didn't hire me for that. They hired me to do this. And so I resigned. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but I knew I was supposed to do it. And as soon as that happened, there was another church in the same county, like diagonally, couldn't be any farther apart, both bordered opposite counties. And they called and they said, our pastor just resigned. Could you come fill in? Like, well, I'd be happy to fill in. And then they said, can you come back next week? And I'd be happy to come back next week. And then they said, will you be our interim pastor while we look? And I said, y'all know I'm running for the House of Representatives. I'm essentially a politician at this point.
Yeah.
And they said, we know, we want you to be our interim pastor. And then several months later, right after the primary, actually, I won the primary of all things. And they said, we want to take the interim off, and would you be our senior pastor? And I said, absolutely. And I lost the election, but I realized through that was God's way of saying, you're not going to do it on your own. You know, like I'm calling you to do this and you won't do it. You're scared of doing it or whatever. And then I found myself unemployed. And yet here was this church saying, you know, we want you to
we
serve.
can also fix your employment problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of felt like a rebound, but God was saying, I'm going to take care of you. But I knew it was more than that. I knew it was God saying the only thing that would have ever got you to leave a safe and comfortable position, because they took care of me, man. It was, I was in good shape, but I knew I was fighting, that there's something more than this. And so God said, this is what it's going to take. It was either that or the NBA, and they weren't calling. So something had to get me away from a comfortable position. And that's what it was. I ran a race. I knew I couldn't win. And that's, I ended up pastoring that church for 6 years, and dearly love people and still stay close with people from both of those churches in South Carolina. It was just an amazing time. But that's ultimately how I got to being a senior pastor, even though
that's not what you wanted.
I was terrified of it. Yeah.
Man, it's funny sometimes how the things that we are absolutely afraid of, God's like, yeah, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, but and just to show you how sovereign God is, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I mean, I never have once been terrified. I've never not known what to say. I mean, it's never been Saturday night and I don't know. I mean, this is what I love, man. Every day getting out of bed, especially Sunday mornings, getting out of bed, getting ready to go preach. It's just,
yeah. I mean, I can imagine Sunday mornings here being a good time.
Oh, it's exciting.
Being a real good time.
Yeah.
I can't say I've never been like Saturday, and I don't know what I'm going to say, but I've never gotten up and been like, oh, I don't have anything. Like recently I had a moment where it was like, hey, you're going to speak on Sunday. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate the heads up. And then it's like, I don't know what I want to speak about.
Yeah.
But by the time I went to sleep, I was like, oh, I've got something I'm going to enjoy. Like I'm going to enjoy. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't always know, is that sometimes giving the gospel gives to us as much as it gives to the people receiving.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, Paul said, woe is me if I don't preach the gospel. And I feel that with Paul. Like that's, man, what else would I do? I mean, I couldn't imagine another profession, another line of work. It's like Jeremiah had this burning, he said the word of the Lord came to him and it was burning within him to share it. And I feel like that if it's Wednesday night, Sunday night, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Sunday morning, you know, or man, doing a funeral. I mean, it's an opportunity to stand up and I just have this gospel just wants to come out of me. I just have this desire to share it. And
that's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
That's a beautiful thing. But I have a question for you. Do you remember your first sermon?
I do.
Was it any good?
Oh, it couldn't have been. Some would argue that last Sunday's wasn't either, but
oh nah.
But
I heard it. It was all right. I heard it.
Now I remember, because I told you I was given opportunities to preach.
Yeah.
So we did a men's prayer breakfast at our church, and once a month. But for whatever reason, because I have an older brother, I might have mentioned, but so my dad told us like, hey, you guys should sign up to speak it. It's like a 5-minute devotion. So, you know, my brother did it. He's older. He's going to go first. Well, then the next month is coming up, and now it's going to be a church work day. So the men's prayer breakfast has turned into a church-wide event.
Oh.
And so instead of like the 20 guys that were going to be there,
it's everybody.
Like a couple hundred people here. So this is sovereignly how God works. But I went from doing a 5-minute devotion to bringing a much longer message on that Saturday morning, which, you know, my father wrote like 99% of it, I'm sure.
Well, shout out to him.
Yeah, he did good. But I do remember that I count that as the first message that I preached. But then I went to a Christian school, a K through 8 school. Mm-hmm. So I was, I guess, in 8th grade, and the principal of the school, you know, knew me and our family and the church, and actually he planted that church. So he asked me to speak in chapel. We had chapel every Friday. So I did the same message. So I might as well recycle it because it was a different audience. Yeah. So
and a good sermon you can do that with.
that right.
You don't have to preach it once.
That's right. But that was harder because it was my peers. You know, I'm an eighth grader talking to eighth graders,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was much harder to do. But so I mean, I remember that. I remember the opening story. I mean, I remember the content. I remember the closing. It's something that just kind of remained with me. But
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first time was really bad. I'm not going to give the story because I've given it multiple times, and I share it from time to time when I'm out. But just it was bad enough that most people would be like, "I'm not doing that again."
Were you expecting to go 30 minutes and you went 2? Because that's how most.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
It was actually something very, very. It was more like I should have went 10 minutes, and I went like 30 seconds. Yeah, it was bad. It was anxiety.
Of course, yeah. You talk 100 miles an hour. Your palms start sweating. That's,
all of that.
Yeah.
Heart pounding.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was like, by the time I got done, my dad was like, I know he didn't teach it. He was supposed to, there was nothing there. And so, yeah, it was a rough go the first time. But now, surprisingly, like I help other people to do public speaking. So
it's great.
It's crazy how far apart, like, you can feel like you're not good at this now, and then God's like, don't worry, I'm going to use that in that very thing that you don't want anything to do with.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. But you are not just a minister. You have Tommy Mann Ministries.
Right.
An author, a speaker. How do you get into writing books and speaking and things of that nature? Like, what is it that prompts you to put these other things outside of preaching on Sunday mornings together?
I've always, I don't remember how far back when I say always, but I remember for most of my life as a youngster, even having this thought that I was going to write books. And I had a teacher. I keep going back to 8th grade. It was such a formative year for me, but we had a creative writing class, and we came in right after lunch, and she would just write a topic on the board and then just write. That's your prompt, to just write. And I enjoyed that so much. I really loved putting words on paper. And so I didn't know what I wanted to write. I was a history nerd as I went through high school, and I used to we had a store, Borders, a bookstore. I don't know if they ever had that. It was in Texas, but we had it in Orlando.
Well, I don't know. I didn't see them, but I'm also not a Texas native. So
that's true. That's true. But we had this bookstore called Borders, and I would go through the history section. I would look at biographies. You know, everybody's writing about Lincoln and Washington, and I'd look at those, and I'd look at the spine, the binding of it, and I would just picture my name, written down there as the author of the book. And I just like, one day that's going to be my book on the shelf. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, just had that thought. So I don't know why. I just enjoy doing it. So I thought maybe I could write history textbooks or biographies or something like that. And I was a senior at Arlington Baptist, and actually I finished a semester early, but couldn't graduate until May. Mm-hmm. So I had time on my hands, and I remember I woke up, it was because my birthday's in January. So I had just finished in December, and it's January. And I had this thought, like, on my birthday, like a midlife crisis at like 21 or whatever I was. Like, man, if you can't write a book right now, with nothing but time on your hands, when are you ever going to do it? And I had this idea for a book, something I wanted to flesh out. And I sat down and I wrote it over the course of, a couple of weeks. And I just had so much fun doing it, and ended up, well, that's when I realized how almost impossible it is to get published. Writing words is a good start, but then turning that into something with a binding with your name on it is a whole nother project.
Completely separate.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. It's like saying, I just want to be a singer. I want to make it in the music industry. It's like, yeah, you and 6 billion other people.
Absolutely.
And writing is really in that same boat. But anyway, I worked on that and had so much fun, writing that first book. It's called All the Law. It takes Jesus' words when he's asked, what's the greatest commandment? He says, love God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, on these 2 commands depends all the law and the prophets. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of fleshing that out about how if we love right, we'll live right. If we love God and love our neighbor, then all the commandments fall into place. We will obey all the law if we show love. So that was the idea, and that was the first book, and lots and lots of rejection from publishers.
I can imagine.
And then fell for a scam, a publisher that seemed like I thought it was a good publishing company. Had to give them a lot of money to get into this contract, and then they went belly up. So I was left with a big bill and like 25 books that I couldn't sell. So, but then ultimately I was able to finally get that re-released. But yeah, that's really how I got into it. Just always wanted to write and wanted to use those words, because once the Lord was moving me into ministry, I just have more that I want to say.
So how long have you been in ministry?
21 years.
21 years. So you've been in a leadership position for a while. If I'm correct, you have a book that deals with leadership. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, you don't think so? Did I get something wrong? I might have gotten something wrong. Oh, no. Okay, not a book. But you have been in leadership, and are you in leadership with the Southern Baptist Convention also?
No, that's another election I lost.
Oh, you lost that one.
I'm good at losing elections. Now, last year I was nominated for second vice president of the Southern Baptist Convention, and I came in second out of 3 guys. So I found out that the only thing worse than being second vice president of the convention is losing the election to be second vice president of the convention. That's where people look at you and say, we don't even think you can handle doing nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, second vice president is absolutely, if something happens to the president and then happens to the first vice president, then we'll look at you. Up. Yeah. So that people said, we don't even trust you to not do that. You know,
Dang.
so yeah, so that's
a very interesting way to look at that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But so being in leadership in general and running for these elections, if I'm understanding correctly, you came like right to the finish line of both of them.
You know, I really almost won the race for the state house. In fact, it was 2016. I was leading the whole night. I mean, I was winning ballot boxes that had not gone for our party ever, and you know, ones where I was not supposed to do well, I was doing well, and I was leading it, and it looked early on like it was going to be a landslide. But then when the early votes came in at the very end of the night, that's when he pulled ahead.
Took the lead.
Yeah, and it was too late at that point. That was the final number. He edged me out there.
So a question that I have is, being a person who is working for these leadership positions and then you don't receive them, how do you deal with that rejection or the just the lack of accomplishing something that you're working hard for? You mentioned a 14-month campaign.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah. The SBC position, I didn't lose any sleep over that. It would have been cool, but I didn't. You don't campaign for it. It's like a gentleman's thing. You're nominated, and you don't pitch yourself. It's just that. But no, losing the race for the House was tough because it was 14 months, because it was all consuming for more than a year. Wake up every day. How can I go out and earn some votes today? And I campaigned full time that whole time. It was also tough because I walked away from what I was said at that time. I said, I resigned the best job I've ever had to run for this race. What amounts to a part-time job in the state house, not Washington, but state level. So I gave up a lot and nothing to show for it in that regard. So it was tough. It was tough to wake up the next morning and the campaign be over. There's no more votes to go out and get, but I was able to say, I gave it everything I had, like an athlete saying I left it all on the floor, the field. I know that there was no second guessing. What could I have done better? How could I have picked up more votes? It was over. So I was able to look in the mirror and say, I did everything I could. And also it helped knowing, though, that I believe, as I said, that the Lord used that to get me to the position I was, to pastor at Putman Baptist Church. So I knew that didn't make it an easier pill to swallow. I knew deep down that good was coming from it, but no, it was hard. I mean, it was hard to be seen out in town and people like, hey, sorry about that. It was like, I'm trying to think
reminder.
About it. Yeah. It's hard.
That could definitely be tough, but like you said, eventually it got you to where you feel like you were supposed to be.
Yes.
In pastoring. Do you mind letting us know, like, what was that first year of being a head pastor like? Even though it seems like part of that year you were campaigning.
Yeah.
But what was, campaign aside, being in that position, what was that experience like?
It was thrilling in a lot of ways. And I felt like I was playing with house money, because the reality is it was a church that was near closing down. And when I first met with them, they had already had an initial meeting about dissolution, and we'll dissolve. We'll donate that's in the bylaws. We'll donate the property to the county association, the Baptist Association. So that I'm not saying they were doing that, but they were weighing
talking
that as one
about
of their
it.
options. Yeah. $1,600 in the bank, 8 people on our first Wednesday night there. So it didn't look very good. So to me, it was, they've offered to pay me for my services while I'm campaigning. And, so that's, I was in a jam.
That's definitely
So-
playing with house money.
Yeah. So somebody asked me, like, do you feel a lot of pressure to save the church? I said, no, because I mean, if it dies, it was dying anyway. That's kind of the way
Yeah,
I
it has
looked at
nothing to
it.
do
That's
with you.
right. So I said, well, let's just roll the dice, man, and go all in. And my wife and I, my wife's always been by my side through every step of ministry that we've done. We talked about it and we said, let's just give this all that we've got for however long we're here. And, we helped them start kids ministry, kids program. And I call it the field of dreams theology. If you build it, they will come.
Mhm.
Just have something for the kids and kids start showing up. Do something and people start coming to it.
Yeah.
And so we really rolled up our sleeves and started identifying all the issues and what's wrong here. What are the problems? Some of it was facilities, problems with the building itself. Some of it was kind of bylaw related. Some of it was some leadership vacuums and things like that. And we just began plugging the holes and had a lot of fun doing it. We gave 6 good years of our lives to it, and very proud of what the Lord did through that. It's a strong, thriving church now. I keep up with them, watch their services on Sundays through Facebook, and just so proud to see what they've done.
That's awesome. And you're easily the only pastor I talked to who said that first year I was playing with house money. I talked to another pastor who he said his first year he was dealing with a lot because the church had internal conflict.
Yeah.
That he had to, the day one you step in, you have to manage this internal conflict that you have nothing to do with, and you have to learn both sides and things like that.
You didn't make the mess.
Yeah,
walked
but you
into
got to
it.
fix it though.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's funny speaking to pastors and seeing like everyone's life is on a spectrum, but some of us are way down here and some of us are way down there on the same spectrum. And it's like, that's the case on every point of life,
Sure.
Like you pretty much grew up in the church. In a couple weeks, I'll be speaking to some folks that one guy, he's a minister now, but he had a life sentence.
Wow.
And he earned his life sentence.
Yeah.
It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake.
Yeah.
He earned his life sentence. And now he's a preacher. And so it's like, it's just cool to see like how drastic and how far, God's using everybody in every way, in every way imaginable. I just think that's interesting. Like,
It is.
Your first year was fun for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other folks, their first year is the epitome of work.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's not. That's not always the case. I mean, but anytime you step into a new position, I mean, a church is hiring a pastor for a reason. There's a vacancy.
Absolutely.
And that could be a pastor has passed away, and that's now you're going into a place where people are brokenhearted because we love this guy, but he got sick. You go into a place where they've fired a guy because he did some terrible things, and they're angry. We feel betrayed that
That's rough.
we hired this guy, we loved him, and he let us down, or he left us for something else. We were a stepping stone, and he finally got a call to a better place, and we have low self-esteem now as a church that we can't retain a good guy.
How do you feel about that? Do you think it's okay for a pastor to be like, I'm just going to leave and go pastor another church? Or do you feel like when you're pastoring a church, you like that's where you're supposed to be?
Yeah.
Like how do you?
Well, I've
wrestle with
left. So I've got to say the first one because I've left churches. But my mentor pastored the same church for over 20 years, and then he left pastoral ministry altogether, and he became a licensed counselor, and he got into counseling, and now he's back pastoring kind of bivocational. His primary thing is the counseling. And I always said that's going to be me when I'm finally called. If I ever become that senior pastor, I'm going to be there forever. I'm not going to be one of these guys, because I've known preachers' kids that said, well, we were in another town, another state every other year because my dad bounced around as a pastor. So I'm never going to be the one that's going to move my family from place to place. But that's one of those times where we might have our plans and they don't always go that way. So I don't think there's anything wrong with leaving so long as you leave for the right reasons and leave in the right way. I think leaving the right way is so important.
Absolutely.
When you do leave a congregation behind, you want to leave on terms where I mentioned Putman, that church in South Carolina. I'm very blessed that they already had me come back last year and preach. and the church where I was the youth pastor there in South Carolina as well. So one day last November, or a year ago November, I went back and preached the homecoming service at that first church. It was called Philippi Baptist on Sunday morning, and then Sunday night preached at Putman Baptist. So I was
that's
at
cool.
both of the South Carolina churches in the same day. And to me, to know that you leave well enough that they call you and say, "Hey,
Come back."
will you come back and preach?"
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty awesome.
so I think there's a right way to leave. If you leave for the right reasons, it's okay.
Absolutely. So we mentioned you have books and things, and we were speaking earlier. One of the books that you have, it writes about something that's it cuts deep.
Yeah.
You write about losing a child. How do you? I don't even know how to ask the question, but like, how do you move through that kind of a loss?
It's difficult. It's moving through any kind of a loss it's tough. I was telling you earlier today about a funeral I was at for somebody who's close to 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we sometimes act like that's an easy loss because he lived a good long life and all that, but it's still somebody's dad, somebody's husband and grandpa and all that. So
Yeah.
any loss is tough. But a lot of times when you lose a child not yet born, people think, well, you didn't really know that baby, it was just a potential, you didn't have it, didn't go to kindergarten, you didn't hold that baby. And so there's a lot of people think you get over it like a kidney stone.
Hearing you say that, I apologize for interrupting, but
No.
I know that what you're saying is true, but hearing those words like actually just hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just hearing you sounds like that. It hurts to hear someone refer to someone's kids that way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It just
No, but that's part of why we wanted this in the book is that that this is a big deal. It's not if you're a lady and you lose a child that's say 10 years old, you're not going to go back to work the next day. Nobody's going to expect you to be
correct.
There. You take some time, you take some personal time, but you lose a child in the womb and it's like, well, 24 hours, just be back at the office, and it's not treated in the same way. And I'm not comparing one loss to another because every loss is a unique loss to somebody. And I'm not minimizing one. I'm just saying we ought to be more mindful of the fact that when you lose an unborn child, it's a terrible, painful tragedy.
Yeah. That's something that some women and people in my very close family have had to deal with.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you writing about that and helping people to deal with that kind of thing, because as we were saying earlier, it's much more common than many people would ever imagine.
Right.
For someone to lose their child.
Mm-hmm.
At any age.
Yeah.
And I think at any age for a parent to lose their child, it's just backwards. It's really just not supposed to happen.
Right.
Recently, well, about 2 years ago, I lost an uncle. And when we found out, went over to my grandfather's house, that was his only son, and I remember him sitting down just saying, he's supposed to bury me.
Right.
Like I'm just not supposed to be. And there's no real words for it, but he's just like, we're not supposed to be experiencing this right now. And so, for anyone who does experience something like that, first of all, my condolences and same to you, your wife. But also, one of the things that I have had to learn about life is that the hard times, though they are hard, that doesn't have to be your entire definition for life. So like there's still hope and there's still joy, there's still love.
Yeah.
And there's still a life that you can enjoy. And I know for some people, when they experience things like that, we forget that part because we go all in on the hurt and on the grief.
Yeah.
And maybe to some extent we should. But I would personally like to let people know that I unfortunately understand some of your pain.
Yeah.
That's not something that I don't think anybody should ever be able to relate to. But because of that, I can also say you can still have bright days ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And so thank you for writing about that and for being vulnerable enough. And to your wife for being willing to allow that to be out.
Yeah. It's a lot more
everybody's not
her
willing to.
story really than mine. And I do appreciate her willingness to allow us to use that story.
Yeah. But you have children
We
today.
do. Yes.
How many?
We have two. We have a
Two.
daughter and a son.
Man, that's all I want right there.
Yeah.
I get that.
That's
I'm done.
Yeah, I said we hit the jackpot, man, because we have our daughter. She's 16. Our son is 12, and you can't ask for anything more than that. So we're very blessed.
Yeah. So, what's it been like being a parent, being a father? Like being a husband is one thing.
Yeah.
Being a father is a totally different game.
Yeah.
I know we can't talk about everything in one conversation, but just a little bit of like what's that experience been like?
I love it, man. I always wanted kids. I love being a father. I love that I have a girl and a boy because it's so different being a girl dad and a boy dad. So I'm glad I get to have this daughter who is just lights up the room when she comes in. You know, she's a daddy's girl, just so proud of her. But then having this son who is becoming a little bit like me all the time, and he even has my name. He's a junior. And it's just so fun seeing him play basketball, you know, just some kind of wisecracking sometimes and just reminds me of myself in a lot of ways. And it's really cool to see they couldn't be more different in a lot of ways, but they're so similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it's great. I just love the kids.
What's it like to look at your kids and see you?
Scary with my son because I remember how much trouble I got in when I couldn't keep my mouth shut in school.
Oh wow, you were one of those. Okay.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that I was necessarily saying bad things. I would blurt out, you know, and
Yeah.
something would come in my head and it was out my mouth before I could stop it.
Understood.
He's born with that same. I don't know if that has a condition with a diagnosis, but he's got it. If that's what it is.
I mean, I might have had something pretty similar. Can't tell you how many times I got in trouble for saying stuff, and my mom was like, "Miles, you can't say that."
Yeah.
And then I don't know about you. My problem was I was like, "But I'm right though."
Oh yeah. Well, my son's always right, so I don't know if I was like that, but he definitely he thinks that he's right about everything.
Yeah, I was like, "Mom, I'm right," and I can't tell you how many times she told me it's not what you said; it's
Yeah.
how you said it.
Yeah.
But they asked a question. All I did was say the answer. Like
Yeah.
I never meant to be mean to anybody, but there'll be times I just like, you said this. This is what I said.
Yeah.
And I think about it, it's like, is that right? Yeah, that was right. And
Yeah.
they'll be like, you can't say that. I was like, but what I do? And it's like, it's not always what you say. Sometimes it's how you say it. And
Yeah.
sometimes, even if you're right, that don't mean you need to say anything at all. So I had that problem big time. It's like, hey, Miles, you just need to shut up sometimes. Like, okay. It's still a learning curve for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that ever, I hope it does.
It's part of growing up. You know, maybe by 40 you'll get it.
Okay, hopefully, I'm praying for that. But as you grow up, how old were you when you got married?
20.
20. So you had kids just a few years after getting married.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first became a pastor?
Well, I was a youth pastor, a part-time youth pastor in Grand Prairie when I was 19. So
Okay.
I was in college starting my sophomore year and had a call about helping out at a church. So and I've essentially been in the ministry ever since then at 19.
Okay.
With, you know, a little bit of a time running for office and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So you've been in the leadership positions for pretty much your
Pretty much
entire
nonstop
life.
since 19.
And so from 19, how old were you when you got into the senior pastor position?
Well, 2016, I would have been, I was born in 85. So 2016.
I don't know the math. Listen, math is not my strong
31?
suit. Okay. Still a young man.
We'll go 31.
Still a young man. Being in leadership for a long time is a very interesting thing because it has crazy effects on people. I tell when I teach people about public speaking, I say when you take the microphone and you take the stage, something magical is going to happen. You are going to literally be elevated above people.
Right.
And then people are going to elevate you in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they thought of you before, they're going to raise that to another level because you are now not just a person, you're now a leader, right? And so you've been in leadership positions for a while. We know that we tell people, like, hey, I'm just a man.
Yeah.
We all the time, I'm just a guy. But sometimes if we're not careful, we can let things get to our head.
Mm.
I saw the video that you told me about recently where you were walking around the church grounds.
Yeah. Wiped out in the ice.
Yeah, you had a nice little tumble on the ice recently. Dalaska is what some of us call it. We had a super ice storm in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yes.
But what's something that happened to you or a thing that you do intentionally that keeps you humble, so that you know in yourself, hey, I'm really, they call me Pastor Tommy. I'm just Tommy.
Yeah. Right.
You know, that's all that I am. Mm-hmm. And to keep yourself from thinking too highly of yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I don't love the titles, you know, so when people like, you know, what should we call you? And I always say Tommy. And then I say, that's what my mom calls me. And that's what I was from day one. And, and so that's my name. But, I think, being vulnerable is really important. And I think, and you would know this, that one of the things they teach in public speaking, and I think it's so much truer for pastors in preaching, but I think in all public speaking, that there's this balance between being confident in the subject matter that you're presenting, because people will not listen to anybody that's wishy-washy. If you don't know your stuff, why am I listening to you?
I was just teaching this 2 weeks ago in one of my classes. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the other side of that is you can't be a know-it-all. You can't be pompous and arrogant. You can't be, I've arrived and maybe one day you can be where I am. So it's this balance between confidence and human, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think as a pastor, I try to intentionally admit my faults and my shortcomings or my struggles, to say, I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm without sin. You know, like I'll be the first to admit, you know, I would talk about losing your temper. Man, I lose my temper, guys. You know, I talk about speeding, man. I joke about,
man, listen, I had to catch myself on the way here, because I'm on US 380, which is for long stretches. It's just you in the road.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you go as fast as you want. Some of those places.
Let me pull back a little bit. I'm going too quickly.
It's easy to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, that's all right. I mean, but to your question, I think it's very important that people see me as one of them, not on a higher plane other than the physical part of it.
Yeah.
But people realize, man, my pastor struggles too. Like if he struggles, I can struggle. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person, that I'm tempted. And I think it's important that people see that. If people don't feel like they can trust you and talk to you,
very important.
Then you're going to be looking down your nose at them if they admit any kind of struggle. So I try to admit my struggles first, and then make it so that you can admit yours as well, and we can all be honest.
I think that one thing, and part of the reason why I even have this podcast, is to give pastors a place to be real. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you a question in a little bit that I don't know the answer to it, but we'll see. And I also teach this when I'm teaching people public speaking, is that if you can be real about your life, about where you fail, about where you struggle, where you were confused, hurt, whatever the case may be, that gives people an opportunity to connect with you on a human level, and know that, okay, they're dealing with it. I'm not crazy for dealing with it. I'm not broken because I'm dealing with it. And it also means I can trust you more. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, is that your brokenness actually makes you trustworthy. And it's one of the reasons why it's so awesome that we can come to Jesus. It's because Jesus came and he experienced the hurt, the pain, the frustration. Like he experienced being human, which makes him so much better of an advocate for us.
Right. And
it makes it so much easier for me to trust him, because, you know, when he was fasting, he was tempted too.
Yeah, he's hungry. He's tired.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I think that's a very important thing. And that's something that I want some leaders to consider a little more often, is, hey, you really are just one of us. Not like I want to bring you down, but like that's just the facts.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we lean into that, we can do a better job of leading those who are coming behind us.
Right.
So the question I told you I would ask, which we'll see what the answer is not too crazy, but I always have to ask questions like this. What is something that you have struggled with since you actually got into ministry? And maybe hasn't been a struggle the whole time, but it was a moment where you said, hey, this is actually something I've got to fight with here. So
that's a really good question. There's different types of struggles in ministry. I mean, I think there's an intellectual struggle when you're wrestling with the text, trying to make sure
That's good.
when you want to pull out the big idea, you want to know, where do I stop and where do I start? What do I say for next week? There's a big part of that where it's you're alone with the Bible and you're wrestling with that. I think that is a struggle as often as we are preachers. There's an emotional struggle though too. I think where we bear other people's burdens and sometimes feeling like we have to bear ours alone while we have to bear everyone else's. So I can't share my burden with you because I'm the strong one who has to be bearing everyone else's burdens. And it's hard, like when I do marriage counseling or really any type of counseling, but I think of marriage counseling because you could have two people that are hurting and fighting and they're like one day away from the divorce lawyers. So I now have this pressure that if I don't say all the magic words and say everything right, your marriage is going to dissolve, and it was on my watch. So
wow.
I have the pressure now. I've got to fix this marriage. And obviously that's not true and it's not accurate, but that's something that I feel. And then I have trouble disconnecting from that. So the things that I see at night when I can't sleep is the look on the face of the wife whose husband has been unfaithful, or the man who is ashamed of, what he's done or whatever. And it's hard. You're with somebody when they lose a loved one. We stand by a lot of hospital beds, a lot of caskets, and watch people as they cry. And it's hard to disconnect from that. It's hard to just punch out, leave that at the office and head home. And it's just very natural, humanly speaking, that somebody told me that the shepherd is supposed to smell like the sheep. We're supposed to be with our flock. But it's an emotional drain sometimes. And that sometimes it's easy to take pride in that and say, I'm the strong one that can handle all of this. And then because I'm so strong and I'm here for all of you, that I cannot share with you when I'm weak, what I'm struggling with. So I think that's one of the big struggles is if I admit my weakness to you, then you might not ever think that you can then burden me.
Yeah.
Because, he's got his own issues. He can't handle mine. So I'll keep mine to myself so that you can know you can give me yours. And that's not what we're supposed to do at all.
Yeah.
We fulfill the law of Christ when we bear one another's burdens. That has to be a two-way street.
That is, I'm not going to go too crazy because I had like 7 questions pop into my head, but that's a very real thing. And something that a lot of pastors deal with, especially that last part of like, who do I go to? Who do I unburden who are my brothers that I can really say, these are the things that I'm fighting with right now. And I think I'm create like a coalition of pastors so that we can all just know that, hey, these are a group of people that we know we can go to.
Yeah.
Because I've asked multiple pastors, like, who do you go to? And multiples of them are like, I'm kind of alone. Like I deal with this stuff by myself.
Yeah.
Which is no bueno.
No, it doesn't work for a little while, but yeah,
it's all bad. But you said something that I want to poke at just a little bit. You were talking about doing marriage counseling, which thank you so much for what you do. We need it desperately. But at some point, do you feel like you're kind of like the third person in the marriage? Is that kind of what it's, because you're like, it's on me to make sure this stuff works. Mm. Is that kind of your experience?
Yeah, I think that's a natural thing to feel. The third person should be the Holy Spirit. God should be there. And I think the reason we might be here is the third person hasn't been included, up until this point. And I just wish for anybody watching, if you need help in your marriage, don't wait until your marriage is on life support. Usually by the time people show up at my office, it's like, well, preacher, we've tried everything else. If you can't fix us, we're headed for the lawyers. It's like, man, you should have come here 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So don't put it off. You got to work on your marriage.
Yeah. I am currently in premarital counseling.
Yes,
so before we say our I do's, we're in counseling and figuring out what is counseling going to look like after we say I do. Mm-hmm. So that, hopefully we never get to the point.
Yes.
The goal is to be together as one till death do us part. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. And that's what we're working for. But moving forward, the church that you pastor is a nice church. Okay. It is. Every church doesn't look this nice. This is actually pretty cool. And your church is coming up on some pretty cool milestones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Overall, 119 years.
That's right.
That's incredible for one church to be around for that
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
But 50 years in this one location.
That's right. Yes.
What's that experience like? You're coming in just a few years you've been here,
Right.
and as soon as you get here, they're like, yeah, we got some pretty big things coming up.
Yeah.
What are you guys like doing? Because I feel like that should be celebrated
Yes.
to be one church that long in one location that long.
Yes. Yeah. We like to have a theme for the year. So in January, we unveiled the theme for 26, and it's 50 years here. And so that's the phrase that we're using, and it's honoring the past and embracing the future.
Okay.
So we want to not just be a museum where we say good things have happened here. Here's all the good stuff the Lord did in the past, but we're also looking to the future, expecting good and even better things to come. So long after we're gone, if the Lord hasn't returned, we expect more good things.
Absolutely.
So it's a year-long celebration with a special service in September 20th. We're going to do a lot of former staff members are coming back. We're excited about having some special guests and things, and nice lunch and that kind of thing. So it's going to be a nice celebration in September, but all year long. We've got pictures from the groundbreaking here, pictures from the old location, things like kind of like blown up canvas prints we've put up, and working on videos and interviews of previous staff members and things, just to all year long trying to put out some old pictures. And here was the youth choir back 40 years ago, or just things like that, just to because a lot of us weren't around for it, so a lot of us are learning about this, and then others were here for it. They're still here, and it's nostalgic for them.
That's pretty cool. I don't know if I've been a part of a single church that can say 100 years we've been here.
Oh yeah.
I've been to some churches that I've been around for quite some time, but I don't know if I've been in ones. 119 is a long time.
Yeah.
And then even 50 years at the same building.
Yeah.
That's a long time, especially in this day and age where, especially like after COVID, a lot of churches just didn't make it.
Right.
It was just the end.
Yes.
And then you guys are here is like a quite literally a pillar of the community.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question about being a pillar of the community. What would you like to see, or what are you all doing for your community?
Great question. I love that we have a food pantry here, and the name of the food pantry is called Because We Care, and that's why we do it. That's why everybody that does it volunteers their time or their money to come and serve it. We unload the truck when the deliveries come, and we set it up, and it looks kind of like a grocery store. It's kind of we have some racks and aisles and things. Where we don't just hand people a bag of food. There's a little bit more dignity, I think, in shopping, picking out a box of cereal and picking out peanut butter and jelly and things like that. So that's a way to help, because people are hungry, and there's so many that are struggling. We talked about the economy a little bit earlier before we started, but yeah, with the prices of everything goes up, and there's some people that just need a little help. Some come like clockwork every time we do it. Some come just once because they just happen to need some help right now. But I'm glad that we have that, and the community knows that you don't have to just come on those days. We do it for second and fourth Monday of every month, but you can come here at any time. We'll give somebody a bag of groceries that we just keep some set aside. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and we do other things too, but that's probably what we're the most known for, is that food pantry, because it is a pretty well organized ministry that we have.
I think a lot of people are unaware of just how many people you choose any city.
Yes.
How many people need, like, somebody please provide exactly what you all are providing.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I want to know, in all your years of ministry, what is something that happened that just made you happy? Like, what's something that happened you was like, today's a good day?
Yeah. I've baptized both of my children. So
that's pretty epic.
That's the trump card. So, I mean,
absolutely
nothing can beat that. So I'll just put that out there first, that I got to baptize separately, both of my kids, and just see them, receive the Lord as their Savior, but then to be the one to baptize them. But in addition to that, I baptized a lady that was 97 years old, spent her whole life in a cult. And then her son in his 70s gave his life to Christ, started bringing her to church, and got to know her a little bit. her mind was slipping, and some days she would come, didn't know who anybody was. But on a Wednesday night, in a moment of lucidity, she asked the Lord to save her. And then I was afraid to baptize her at 97. She's frail, so I'm going to put her underwater, But she said no. She said, I want to do it. I want to do it right. Because I said we can pour. I believe in immersion. I believe in going under the water.
Yeah.
But I said we can pour water over you. This is an extenuating circumstance.
Absolutely.
97. I said at least give me some waivers to sign. I was nervous, but no. But we baptized her under the water. I have a framed picture of that in my office of she and I
That is
at
awesome.
her baptism, and she died at 99, and in the nursing home. We talked about her baptism and, when she was saved. And even though her mind was pretty gone at that point, I was just talking to her about that while her eyes were closed, and she smiled and started kicking her feet. And I was like,
Really?
I knew she heard that, and she responded to that. And just seeing what the Lord did, the grace and mercy to save a 97-year-old, that how many chances that she spurned God. And I just think it was amazing that to be a part of that. So
That's interesting. And you said her son he was 70?
yeah, give or take.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they were in a cult for a while.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Man, that's I'm going to need another hour just to talk about all of that.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, though. I like just hearing some of the things that would make the pastor smile.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have thoughts and opinions on what pastors are and how they think. And the truth of the matter is just people who love Jesus.
Yeah.
And we want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know a simpler way to put it. And I never know what the stories are going to be. I never thought I'd hear about a woman who was in a cult in her 90s
Yeah.
and decides to get baptized.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
I didn't have that on my bingo card.
Yeah.
In seminary. That was truly a once in a lifetime thing.
That's pretty awesome. So before we get out of here, I want to know, we're here at Highland Terrace Baptist Church. We're in Greenville, Texas. We got the 50-year celebration coming up. I mean, we're celebrating all year, but
Yep.
in September, by the way, my birthday's on the 29th, so that's a great time to celebrate. In September, we're celebrating 50 years at this specific location, 119 years overall. But is there anything that you would like for, if you had one message, one thing you want people to know before we get out of here, what would that one thing be?
About the church or...
Well, about the church or just you, period.
Yeah. Well, I'm just proud to be here, honored to be a part of this. If you're in the area, I think Highland Terrace is as good of a church. It's worth driving to if you're not in the area. So
Okay.
I think it's a great place. It's friendly. We want to lift up the name of Jesus above all. We say we're built on the Bible. And that's what we stand on, and we funnel our decisions through that, and who we are. It all comes down to God's word. So if you're looking for a Bible believing, Bible preaching church where we don't just say that, but it really is our foundation, I'm very fond of Highland Terrace and thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and they really do preach the Bible. I was telling him when we first talked on the phone, I was like, I've been listening to your sermons, and you might be surprised to hear this, but I'm actually impressed you're really teaching Bible. Like, I really appreciate that. So that's awesome. So anything else you want to say? Any other messages? Anything whatsoever that you would like to leave the people with?
No, I appreciate you and what you're doing, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about the church and to talk a little bit about who we are and how we got here. It's an honor to be on your show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of How Pastors Are Made. This is Pastor Tommy Mann here at Highland Terrace Baptist Church. We're in Greenville, Texas. And I just want you guys to know that God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. But as I oftentimes say, I believe that selfishness creates the world that we hate. But if we are intentional about doing good, we can create a world that we love. So find somebody and find a way to do something good. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.